we wouldn't want to only have 3 joys that we could feel in our whole life. We wouldn't want to have 6 excitements that we could just kind of, okay, pull that off the shelf. Now I'm going to feel joy today. But for some reason or another, we think that that's how the negative emotions should be. We think, well, I've already dealt with this grief. Why does it keep coming back?
Welcome to Matters of Soul Importance, where we dive deeply into topics of both earthly and eternal consequence. I'm Roxanne Solonen, faith columnist and features writer for the Forum, author, and speaker. My guest today, Nichole Haugen, is a local guest whom I interviewed for my Faith Conversations feature about a year ago. Because the topic of grief tends to really burrow down into our lives this time of year, especially here in North Dakota when the world seems to have, in some sense, died, it seemed a good time to have a little chat about it. Because grief isn't something we can avoid. And it's going to sneak up on us sooner or later. And if we can at least have a heads up about how it might affect us, or to begin to be more honest about how it has already affected us, there's a chance to move through it more healthily. For me personally, this year was a grieving year, with the loss of my sweet mother-in-law, Bev, whom I loved dearly. In December of 2024, we are just past the 1-year anniversary, and it's been a year of deep reflection, of having to push away thoughts of calling Bev when something exciting or difficult has happened, of wondering what is really on the other side of the veil. To grieve is to be human. To grieve well is to be a more whole human. My guest today, Nichole, is equipped to guide us through this conversation. She lost her parents fairly suddenly and close together in 2019, and then discovered some things within her marriage that plunged her further into a place of deep grief. How did she crawl out of that hole to not only become healthier herself, but to be able to turn around and become a grief coach for others? What does a grief coach do exactly? Can't we just white knuckle it on our own until grief floats away? Maybe, but maybe there's another way. And today, Nichole, who is also a wife, mother of 6 girls, and a nurse, will bring us gently through the conversation to help answer the question, how do we get over grief? We've belabored this long enough now, so let's meet Nichole. Well, welcome, Nichole, to Matters of Soul Importance. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
All right. And tell us where you're located.
I am north of Jamestown at Courtney, North Dakota. I live about a mile north of Courtney and have 6 girls, married for, I got to think, 16 years to my husband, Will.
Okay, awesome. We just celebrated 34, so we're a little bit ahead of you, but we made it through the hard stuff. You're in the middle of the hard stuff. It gets hard later too, but this is intense where you're at. So thank you so much. Extra special thanks for breaking away from your 6 girls. Oh my gosh, that's going to be crazy. It probably already is as they're starting to like into their teen years and beyond, but well, I want to hear a little bit about you, Nichole, so we can get kind of set up for the interview about grief and how do we get over grief, or actually the question might be, do we get over grief? But you're kind of an expert in that, for better or worse. It's probably not something you dreamed of when you were a little girl. Someday I want to help people get over grief, but this is where you are. This is where God brought you. And so tell us a little bit about your background, though, like where you began your life and a little bit about your faith journey.
Yeah, so I born and raised in North Dakota, also cradle Catholic. So we went to a small parish in Windsor, North Dakota, and my mom was Catholic. My dad was not, but my mom just had really strong faith, and it was just a really good example for me growing up. And then my dad did convert on his deathbed, pretty much. But
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty special. But part of my story is I'm a nurse, and so I mostly worked in hospice. Hospice home health is kind of my specialty, what I enjoyed. And so I was working as a nurse, having baby after baby after baby, and just kind of, going through life, busyness of that. Husband also worked, and so we were always home with the kids, so we always had shifts that we would kind of flip-flop, so just very busy. And In 2019, so I was pregnant with our sixth child at the time, and my dad had been diagnosed with cancer like 10 years before that. So when I was first pregnant with my first child, and he far exceeded the what he should have lived. So that was a miracle to begin with. He had prostate cancer, but by the time they found it, it had metastasized to his bones. So he lived with that for 10 years. And then in 2019, it was Holy Week that year. And we knew like he had really declined. He no longer could walk. So my mom called and I was like, okay, well, is he ready for hospice? So I kind of got that lined up for him. And he became Catholic, and my husband became Catholic like 3 days later because he was planning on entering the church that Easter as well. So my husband always says, like, your dad beat me.
Yes.
He didn't have to take the classes or anything. He just jumped ahead of me in line. So that was just really special. And then I had our sixth daughter in June, and then my dad passed away at the end of July. And then my mom passed away the beginning of December, and hers was not expected. It was a winter storm accident. She missed her turn in. She couldn't see where the road was. It was kind of blizzarding and storming, and accidentally drove out onto the water next to her driveway, and her car was submerged. And so that was very, very tragic, of course, but it was also tragic in the way that it took a day or so for them to find where her car was in the water. And when they got the car out, her body was not in the car. So that took another day or so to find her. So that was just very, very tragic. It was just like moment by moment trying to get through that. And then about a month after that, so in January 2020, I found out that there was financial infidelity in my marriage, and that had been going on for our whole marriage. And so that just was another grief piled on to the grief I was already having for both of my parents. And then, of course, it was 2020, so the world shut down and everything was just flipped upside down. And it really put me on a path of healing. And I don't really like to use the word self-discovery because it kind of sounds woo-woo, but like really like trying to figure out like, what is my purpose here? Like what, like something has to give, because what I'm doing right now, I can't keep working as a nurse, raising 6 kids, trying to figure out this marriage thing, grieving, and just kind of trying to figure it all out. So that led me down a path to finding coaching, and that really helped me heal in a lot of ways. And I've had some really amazing Catholic coaches that like really always quote the saints and all, like they had such knowledge, but they also had such a way of managing their mind that I had no clue about. I had no idea that was even out there when I was in my early 20s. So just learning all of that and healing and going through all of this has led me to wanting to help others with it.
That's really cool. And I want to dive into that, but now I'm back. I'm going back. So there's 2 very different deaths that you experienced. One was known, and you had all those years, and you were a hospice nurse, so you knew what to do. You kicked into gear of, hey, this is who I am. I'm going to be able to help this happen. And then the one with your mom, like, so my mom is 85 or going to be, gosh, I forget. I think she's 85, and she used to come to here. She's in Bismarck, so she used to come every year for Easter. It was our holiday together in Fargo. And a couple of years ago, I was making something, baked potatoes. That's what it was, getting ready for Easter. My mom was on her way. I didn't have my Fitbit, which was going to tell me if someone called. Thankfully, she called my husband. She was on the side of the road. It was one of those weird years. There was like ice walls or snow walls on the way in between here. And you probably remember that. Crazy stuff. But it had melted a little bit, mostly by then, but still there was some there, and she hit a patch of ice, and that was super scary. I got dressed immediately and went to go drive to find her around where you are, near Jamestown, and that was it. She doesn't drive on the interstate anymore, but just having experienced that and realizing how quickly my mom could have been taken from us, I can enter into that space with you a little bit, but can you kind of I kind of want to hear more about that because our moms are so precious to us. Like our hearts are connected to our moms. You're a mom of daughters. I just want to hear a little bit about that because I need to process what you went through so we can understand even more what you're going to share later. But like even just not being able to find her body, like my heart is just breaking. I didn't know those details. And how did you even in that? How did you do that?
Yeah, so it was a lot of just trying to like ground myself in the moment and be like, okay, this is really happening. Like, because your body almost is like numb and in shock of like, because I had just seen her the day before. I mean, it was so sudden, so unexpected. She had driven on those roads for, I mean, the whole time that my parents were married. It's almost 40 years. Like,
How old was she?
she was 63.
See, that's really young. I'm 57, so that's not that far. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like my dad was 75. So, there was quite an age difference between them. But yeah, she was very young. I mean, and so it was, trying to just in those moments, like, okay, this is happening. This is real. And then just like, what was the next step? And a lot of those days, my mom's like favorite saying was, Jesus, I trust in you. So that just was on a constant like loop in my head, was just, Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you. Like, I don't know. Like, we don't know where she's at. Because at the beginning too, we didn't know if she had driven somewhere, because we couldn't see her car, it was underwater. So we didn't know. And Alzheimer's runs in her family. And so I was like, well, maybe the loss of my dad, like it triggered something. So we were, we had neighbors out looking for her. So it was the unknown was really hard. And that in both of them, right, with my dad and my mom, like that is like the hardest thing, is that unknown. Because with my dad too, it was like, okay, especially those 3 months, like I knew this was the end, but you don't know how long. It could be 6 months, it could be 8 months, it could be next week, and you kind of, once you get closer to it, you can see, the decline, but we never know. So that's kind of the part that felt the hardest, was so much was unknown.
Well, another thing too, you're a mother of 6 kids. So need I say more? Like my dad died also. I mean, it was kind of, he had an incident at Thanksgiving, and then he never got out of the hospital and died in January. But I had 5 pretty young kids at the time. I mean, they weren't littles, but they were pretty young still. And I remember, my husband just said, just go. And that was such a gift, because I got to spend the last couple of days with him and was holding his hand when he died. But I mean, my husband was kind of a hero during that time, because he found all the funeral clothes and everything for my kids. Like he did the thing that I was usually supposed to do. So you're going through grief, you're going through all this, but you're also a mother of 6 children. And that's a lot too. So I'm sure that's going to be part of the conversation as far as parents who are going through that, because you can't just like tuck your kids away and say, I got to grieve. So you just go over here for a couple of years and we'll talk later. You also have to live in reality, right? And there's so much there that's kind of weighing down on you as you're trying to, because you're a daughter in that instance, and you're also a mom and you're a wife.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's like, you're going to help lead us through all that, but those are some of the questions and thoughts that are coming to my mind right now. Like, how did you navigate being a mom as you were grieving your mom's death, your mom's tragic death?
Yeah. And a lot of that too. Well, my husband was very helpful, like, especially with my mom. I mean, I took the baby, but otherwise he was just like, nope, I got this. We'll figure it out. Everybody's fine. And at the time we lived in Valley City. So to get to my parents' house was about an hour. Okay. So it was also a lot of back and forth, especially when my dad was, on those last couple months. So it was a lot of back and forth, packing suitcases, bringing the kids on the weekend, or if I had a day off, I'd load them all up again. And so a lot of just juggling. And that's something too, that right after my mom's death, so the Immaculate Conception is the day she actually died. And
December 8th?
Yes.
Wow.
And then Our Lady of Guadalupe. It was the day her body was found. And so I just find confident like that Mary, I knew Mary was going to find her. And so it was, and then Christmas, so shortly after. So it's just focusing on the things that need to get done. Like we need food. I need to make sure like they're dressed, but just kind of everything else can wait and go out the window. And that was what I mostly focused on those next coming months, even if it was like, okay, we're having frozen pizza again, or I need a few minutes at the end of the day, so I'm going to put a show on for them. That kind of stuff where knowing that it's not going to last forever, even though it feels like it will, but to get over that, or like to get through that and to know that it's okay to not be on your A game as a parent. And that you're not going to mess them up so much that it's little things, right? Like we make sure their basic needs are met. And so it's knowing that and just kind of giving yourself grace in that to know this is how it is right now. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I was thinking too, that, it's just not one part of the picture is that you were going through this grief and needed some alone time to process it. But at the same time, children can sometimes help us too. Number one, death is a part of life. And so they're going to have to confront that at some point. So they confronted it in a pretty, visible way at a time in their life that I'm sure they were starting to think about death and have questions. And I'm sure that there were moments too when having children actually was a comfort or, took you away from like, what, real life is happening. I have to continue on here. And I have these blessings here, I don't know. I had like one child in particular would always kind of seek me out when I was sad and say something that made me think that God just spoke to me. I'm sure you had some of those moments too, right? It's not always just like kids are a burden, but no, they help us through things too. Did you have that experience?
Yeah, especially like around Christmas, it was like they just were so joyful still. And that made us appreciate them and just life because it was like, like they are so fun and joyful. I mean, obviously there's things that they're not so fun, but it was like, it just really did make you appreciate like the other side of it. And yeah, I do have a couple children who are more likely to seek me out and give me a hug or be like, what's wrong? And then we can talk about it, right? I can be like, I'm sad. I'm really missing grandma today. Or it's grandpa's birthday. And so I'm really missing him. And so it allows you to kind of have those conversations where it would have been very easy for me to just retreat and shut down. I think if I didn't have them kind of to force me out of myself.
Well, you've touched on how faith came into this and how that comforted you. So I guess kind of keeping that in mind too, why don't we move into like, it's one thing to go through grief, to like deal with it. I love the hospice piece. I wrote quite a few stories early in my writing career about hospice to the point where I'm like, I feel called to that too someday. I don't know. It hasn't happened yet, but I have been at the bedside of, a handful of people or so. And I feel like there's something there because it's such a tender time, but also times with like your mom, you didn't get that, you were robbed of a chance to sort of go through that, in a slow way. But what compelled you then? I'm sure being a hospice nurse had something to do with it, but to make this into more than just like, take us through that. You kind of did it quickly earlier, but take us through the process of moving through the grief and then deciding you wanted to help others move through as a grief coach.
Yeah, so I just found that it was very different being a hospice nurse and seeing it and kind of having that outward, side of it versus living it yourself. And I had other family members die. I had a cousin who died when he was 15. His heart stopped suddenly at track practice. I had all my grandparents had passed away. So I wasn't unfamiliar with that, but it hadn't hit me where it shook me to like, now, like your parents are both gone. Like it just, there's a sense of identity that you just lose. And so it's trying to figure that out on that side of it. And And it was really hard. And there was so many things that were unexpected. I was like, nobody talks about this. Like feeling guilty that my dad died in pain and I was a hospice nurse. Like that was my job at the time and I couldn't fix his pain. And just other things too, where especially like January was a shock for me. I thought the holidays would be hard. And then once I got through that, it would be fine. And January was almost worse. People didn't check in as much. It just kind of life moved on. And also, I mean, people say a lot like, well, give yourself a year. Well, the first year, I mean, there were so many things going on and so many different dynamics in my life that I just kind of managed to get through that. So the grief didn't really hit me till year like 2 or 3 and even 4. So it was those kinds of things that I'm like, oh, like this is very eye-opening to have this happen and to have conversations. And where do people go to talk about this stuff? Because even the very best meaning of people, like my husband was there with me, right? Like he was there the whole time. He would say things like he had never gone through a loss like this. So he didn't know what to say. And I would expect him to know what to say because you're my husband. You should know what I need right now. Well, I didn't even know what I needed. So how is he supposed to know what I needed? So there's just a lot of, we look to other people to help us through this. And most people are so uncomfortable talking about death. So like, it's so awkward. People don't know what to say. They don't know how to, they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. And so they just we fumble through it. And I'm like, I want to make this. So it's a part of life, right? Like everybody's going to die. So it's like, I want to make it a normal part of the conversation as well.
Grief is so strange. I called it a strange friend. And one of my friends who's gone through the death of both of her parents too says things come out sideways because, we process things together. She's my walking friend. And grief, it's touched her in very, poignant ways. And it does. It comes out sideways and you learn that everyone responds to it differently. And we all hear about the stories of siblings fighting and all the things that's like really like mom died, dad died, and now we're fighting. And it's just very strange what happens because it taps things within us that I don't think we're even aware. A lot of it is very unconscious, I would say. But you hinted and talked earlier that you had some mentors. So I'm assuming that they were kind of a guiding light to where you are now. Talk about how they came onto your path. Was that something you sought out, or did they just kind of appear along the road and they were gifts that God brought you? How did that unfold?
Yeah, I want to say like the first one was kind of just like God was like, here you go, you need this. So I have been listening to this woman, Sterling Jakewith, she had a podcast. It was Coffee and Pearls. It was about parenting. And she just kind of was gone a while. I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to that in a while. And then I realized she's kind of switched tracks. She became a coach and got her certification, and she had lost a bunch of weight. And so that's kind of how I started with her, was like, okay, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to like, there's so much external things going on and my mental health is like probably not at its finest. So I'm like, I'm going to get a gym membership. I'm going to like do this. So that was kind of how it all started. I had never even heard of coaching before. And here was a Catholic coach. And I was like, okay. And then there was another coach, Christy Walker. She was very instrumental to me in helping me through a lot of my marriage struggles. I think too, just having a Catholic perspective where it's like, okay, we know things are hard, but I'm not going to get divorced. Like so having that perspective was really helpful. And even sometimes being able to have conversations where like, okay, well, what would it look like to have a divorce? And like, okay, no, I don't want to choose that. I want to choose to stay together. Yes. Okay. Like I'm going to keep going. So those were some that like, I just really think that God placed them in my life to help me through some of those really difficult days and months that I think I would have I don't think I'd be where I am, like as far as self-growth and the healing process as I am without them.
Before we go to a break, I want to get more into the coaching and find out what you offer and things like that. But first, I do want to, you tapped on the marriage issues, which we've had ours as well. And so talk about that as a grief. There's other kinds of grief than a bodily death, right?
Yeah. So grief is basically any time we experience a major loss. And so for me, especially in the marriage, it was grieving the loss of the marriage I thought I had. I thought we were communicating so openly about everything. And there was all this hidden debt and all this stuff that was coming up. And so it was really kind of starting from scratch again. We've been rebuilding trust. We went to the Retrovi weekend in Fargo. That was helpful. That's a great tool as well. And we've just done a lot of work. We meet with our priest. He kind of counsels us and guides us through a lot of the different things. And I think with any marriages, it's not even if you have something heavier like that, it's communication with another person is hard. It's trying to figure out every day, like you're with this person and figuring out this life. And then when you have kids and then the kids are at this stage, but then they grow and now they're at this stage. And it's kind of like figuring it out over and over again all the time. And it's work. it's work.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think anytime two human beings get together and try to merge their lives, like it's kind of a mess sometimes. And we have to acknowledge that. But well, I want to take a little break and then we're going to get back into it and really dive into what you offer as a grief coach. So I'm excited to hear more about that, Nichole. So we'll be right back with more Matters of Soul Importance with Nichole Haugen.
Get 6 months of local news for just $2. You get unlimited access to the news and information you need to stay connected to your community. Visit inforum.com/subscribe to get 6 months of local news for just $2.
Welcome back, Nichole. We were talking about grief and the many different kinds of grief, and also that there are tools to get through this. So I think in our culture, you've kind of hinted at this, but we kind of put death over here on a little shelf. I don't think it's always been that way. I remember a friend talking about growing up on a farm and how aunt whoever died and they just brought her into the farmhouse and just laid her on the thing and the kids were kind of laughing and circling around and whatever. And then they went to go about their business. And that just really struck me. We don't do that. And I think when you're on a farm, you do see death a lot. So you kind of have to confront that even through the animals or whatever, farm accidents, things. But in our main city culture, we tend to, even the way we bury people. I remember when my grandma was buried, like we went out to the site and then we had our little ceremony and there she was. And then we left and then they buried her. Whereas in like the Native American culture, like you're there, you're burying. I had a priest friend that was on Red Lake. When he died, we each took a shovel and shoveled the dirt onto, I mean, it was very visceral, but we don't, for the most part, Americans tend to kind of gloss over things, which can be a hindrance there. And we're not really facing it. So I just threw a lot of things out, but if any of that like strikes a nerve and you want to talk about that, and then we'll go into what you offer.
Yeah, I think that is kind of the biggest thing that happens is we're so used to a culture now where everything is instant and like that, right? Like even a burial, we've made it faster. Even when people go to the hospital now, a surgery that they would have been there for 10 days, now you're there for a few hours, you're in and you're out. Everything is fast. And if it's not fast, it's an inconvenience. And so with grief, it feels like a huge inconvenience because it does not go away. It's in your face, whether you want it or not. And I heard somebody say this one time, I think it was on a podcast or something, and it was, grief is like urine. It's going to come out one way or another.
Oh
and
my.
so I just thought that was so true, where I'm like, it does. And so it can even come out in ways where like you're more short-tempered with like your friends and family or your children. You can be scrolling a lot more on your phone. You can, and like you're just eating all the time, even like just to kind of numb that, or drinking, right? Like there's all readily available now where you can just try to stuff away those feelings that are trying to come out. And I think as a culture, we're not great at acknowledging feelings, or we kind of go the opposite way and we think that feelings should dictate everything. And so there's that middle ground where it's okay to have a feeling and to allow it and to kind of let it be, right? It's not a good or bad thing. It's just a feeling. And then to know, okay, how do I want to keep showing up, or how do I want to handle this moving forward? And I think that, especially with grief, we feel like we're doing it wrong because we think, well, I've already processed that, so I should be over that. Well, it's been a year, it's been 6 months, like, and that's not how life works, even in life in general, because we wouldn't want to only have 3 joys that we could feel in our whole life. We wouldn't want to have 6 excitements that we could just kind of, okay, pull that off the shelf. Now I'm going to feel joy today. But for some reason or another, we think that that's how the negative emotions should be. We think, well, I've already dealt with this grief. Why does it keep coming back? And we wouldn't want to only feel joy a handful of times in our life. But we think that that's how it should be with the things we don't want to feel. It's like, no, like we have all these emotions, like they're a good and amazing. It's the human experience, is having emotions and feelings. And so we try to only have one side of the coin, but there's 2 sides to the coin. And to have the full human experience, we really do want all of them. We just don't think we do.
Well, to complicate matters further, grief is multi-layered and relational in that. So my husband lost his mother, and I absolutely loved her a year ago. And so we're coming up, and by the time this records, will be right over the year anniversary. And that is a big, significant thing. You wouldn't realize it is, because again, a year has passed, right? But there's something about that year, and maybe you can talk about that. But I don't know if it's a male versus female thing, probably not. But my husband was, going through grief in a different kind of way, where I think he wanted to just push it. He owns part of a business, and he just didn't have time, to belabor the thing. And I could see, but I tried to, because I've been through it before, I tried to give him a lot of grace, but there was a point, it's like, this is hurting me now, because I can tell, I think this is grief. I think the way you're kind of talking to me is grief that's not healed and whatever. But so what I'm saying is grief and how we handle it. Of course, I'm grieving too, because this is someone I love. She was one of my confidants, and she was a confidant to my children, and just a beautiful soul. So I'm going through my grief, but then I feel like I can't because that's his mom. And, it's very complicated. And then I have my kids' grief with her, and how do you, it's just, so I'm imagining that you might even offer, help and tools for people that are like experiencing maybe what I'd call secondary grief, where the main person, like my husband, it's his mom, but then there's the secondary grief. I don't know, I'm just making that term up, but of someone that maybe feels like, well, I don't really deserve to grieve as hard as he does. So is that something too that you might help people with?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had quite a few clients that's why they come to me, is because they're like, well, it's not my mom or my person, but it's my husband's, and I'm worried for them, and I don't feel like they're handling it. And then I feel like I need to shy away from it because I don't want to upset them. And I always say, like, why shouldn't you grieve that person, right? Like, you had that relationship with them, and that was a beautiful thing too. But I think we have our grief, and then what happens is we take on others' grief, or we want to worry for them, and we want to help them, and we're nervous they're not doing it. Like, well, I don't know, what do they need? And really, if we look at our grief and we're able to process it, allow that feeling as they come up, right? It'll be different feelings here and there, but like as they come up, those other things will fall into place. It's just like if they say when you're on an airplane and you got to put your oxygen mask on first because you can't help the other people around you. And it really does have a ripple effect. And that is way more beneficial to everybody than worrying about them. Like, and again, we mean the best intentions. Like we want to help them through that. We want to be there. But I think especially as moms and women, we put ourselves on the back burner in a different way. I think men do that too, but we put ourselves on the back burner kind of in a victim mentality sort of way to like help everybody else. And like, that doesn't do us any good. And it also doesn't do them much good. We can do it for a little while, but eventually we're all going to kind of crumble or fall apart.
Crash. Yes. So tell us what you do and how it works when someone approaches you and how do they, I just want to hear the whole process. And did you know there was such a thing as a grief coach when you started? Had you heard of it before? Or was that like, oh, you can get certified for this?
Yeah, no, I didn't know. I mean, I knew like when you get a coach certification, you can there's all these different ones, but yeah, it was kind of when I started, I was discerning like what area was called to. I didn't know, if I should help nurses or if marriage issues or grief. And I really felt called to the grief area of it. And so I didn't know that it was really a thing until I got into it. And so what I do is first on my website, I have a course and that has 5 videos with like a 6th video. That's a bonus to talk to kids about grief, but it's $25. I try to make it as reasonable and they're short videos, but it really walks you through like the main things to know about grief and so you don't feel so alone. Because a lot of with the grief is like you feel like you're isolated in it, that you're the only one who's going through this or feeling these things. And so I offer that. And then I always encourage people to book. I have a free consult call on my website to book a call with me. So then I can kind of help you know what the next steps are. And some people are like, well, I think with, the course and just in our 30 minutes, I think I'm okay. I don't think I need it right now. Other people are like, yeah, I want to do one-on-one coaching with you. So it really depends on where the people are at. And that's why I like to do the free consult call, because I don't want people to invest in something that they don't need, or like, I don't know, like I'm super busy for the next year. I don't think I'd fit it in. So
wow, I really love that you do keep the price reasonable, because that tells me you're not out there like trying to make money off of people's grief. You actually do want to help. At the same time, you want to respect that you have 6 kids and you have to take time out. And so it's fair to be compensated for that. And you have some skills and some experience to offer. I'm curious because this will be heard by people other than Catholics. I know that that's part of your, who you are and how you would probably approach this. What would you do? Do you offer coaching for anyone, or is it specifically Catholic?
Yeah, I have coached anyone and everyone. My thing is I do like to pray before the consult calls or our coaching calls. But if that's something you don't want, you just kind of put it in the notes or let me know. And that's not a problem. And honestly, I mean, faith, it doesn't come up as much as you think it would. I like to say that I'm Catholic just so people know that like, you're going to get a strong Catholic background. So it's more for other Catholics, but I have coached anyone and everyone through grief.
Well, Catholics like our saints, and I know you brought up Mary. Is there any other saint that you tend to like nudge a little bit and ask for prayers as you're meeting with individuals? Is there a certain saint, a patron saint of grief?
I really love Mother Teresa. And so for me, it's more of like, because how much she just focused on the person in front of her and just allowed God to just take care of the rest of them. And so I think that's a lot of time with grief, is to just focus on the thing in front of you and not take on those other worries that we can't control anyway. So Mother Teresa is one that I go to quite a bit. And Saint Zélie Martin, who is Saint Teresa's mother. I pray to her often just because she had a lot of children in general, but she had a lot of girls. So
True.
I like her. And Mother Mary is always probably top notch always for me too. Just her different like feast days and everything. There's always something that I feel connected with Mary.
Yeah. What about, I didn't ask you this in advance, so if you don't have anything, that's fine, but do you have any scripture passages that are particularly helpful as you're meeting with people of any persuasion? Especially
And I don't, me being typical Catholic, I can't remember what actual verse it is, but it's one about like the sparrow where like God will take care of the sparrow. How much more will he take care of you? And then I just love the Jesus, I trust in you. I know that's not scripture, but that's just like a go-to one that I love.
Tell us a little bit about the experiences you've had. So how long have you been doing this? And what are some of the moments where you're like, yes, I found my thing. This is it.
Yeah, I've been a coach for, I got certified in 22. So it's 3 years now, a little over 3 years. For me, I didn't do grief right away. That's kind of been a discernment process, but it was really, I think what hit me was so many people, like when I would coach on other things, it was like there was an underlining hurt or wound that needed to be healed. And so that I'm like, we all have so much grief that we are just, we're over here like missing a limb and we've just slapped a Band-Aid on it and nobody's helping these poor people. So I'm just, the nurse in me. I'm just like, oh, I have to help the people.
Yeah. Well, and when you were talking about how you were discerning where you were going to go and you named the different areas, I'm like, well, all those are going to fall under grief, right? Like the marriage things and even kids leaving the home or whatever. I mean, there's so many different kinds of grief. Other than someone dying, have there been any other that you call to mind that have been fallen under the grief category that weren't about someone dying?
Yeah, there's been some with where their children have had addictions. And so there's been, relationships there that they're grieving that. There's certain, like they see them occasionally, but there's some boundaries there. And again, just grieving that. A lot of relationship type grief. And then, there was one more, but now I lost it. Oh, marriage, marriage grief as well with that too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a Facebook page that I help moderate based on my book that I co-authored, What Would Monica Do? And Monica, she's known for her tears, and it wasn't about someone dying. It was about her son falling away from God. And that is it is a real actual grief. And the tears, though, the one that I like to pull out of scriptures, our tears will be turned into dancing. And someday, those tears will go away, but we're kind of stuck with them here. And they can be healing, right? Tears can be healing. What other things about grief do you want to share with us? I know we have a short time today because you have some kids kids programs to go to, but I want to make sure we linger long enough. And also, where do we go if we're interested in this for people? And is it just local? You're in North Dakota, or can you coach people from all over the United States?
Yeah, everything is online, so I can coach. I've coached even a couple people overseas. That gets a little tricky with the time zones, but yes, anywhere in the U.S. And everything's over Zoom. And of course, the course is on there that you get instantly dropped into your email address to watch on your own time. And so all that is at CatholicGriefCoach.com. And I think the biggest thing that I want people to be aware of or to know is just that it really is hard. It really is a special kind of beast. And I know for me, a lot of times, I didn't understand, oh, like I feel so angry, or now I'm so sad, or I would just get irritated at the smallest little things that wouldn't have bothered me in the past. And all of that was grief in some way just coming out because I didn't know how to process it or handle it. And so I just really encourage everybody. I always say, like, find some, like, if you have a really good friend that doesn't input their, their advice and their things on it, like, great. Or find a coach or a therapist, because it never hurts us to talk to somebody else about something that we're struggling with, because we are made for communion. And I think so, especially in this world now, in our modern day, like we can isolate so quickly, or even like, it's not a bad thing to put it in like a Facebook post, but it's not the same as like having somebody who can check on you, who knows you, who you can even say those things that are just in the quiet of your mind that you don't want to vocalize because you feel shame or guilt. Like, it's a good thing to vocalize that and bring it to the light.
I'm thinking of maybe people that will say, it's good, it's fine, I'll figure it out. At what point do the signs come that it's like, nope, I'm not figuring this out. I can't do it alone. And I don't have that person. And in a way, it's like, yeah, it's nice to talk to someone you know, but maybe it's okay to talk to someone you don't know too. Maybe a little bit safer.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say anytime that you're getting results that you don't want in your life. So anytime you're like, I mean, you don't have to be diagnosed an alcoholic to be like, wow, I want to change this. I want to do better. I want to grow in this area. And that is a great time to then be like, okay, I think I want to go and just, get this free consult and see what it's about. Because otherwise, grief is kind of funny also in that way, where we can go super, like, we just feel like we are the lowest of the low and we can't even think to like find somebody to help us, or it just feels awful and we just are really struggling with it. There's anniversaries or different things. And then we kind of feel better and we're like, oh, I got this now. Like, I can handle it. Like, it's okay. I don't need that. And so it is something that I say, it's just going to keep coming back. Like, you're going to have something that triggers you, or you're going to have something that's going to bring up these feelings and emotions. And so I've had people that are always like, oh, I wish I would have known this sooner. Like, it's the same with hospice services. People always like, oh, I would have known about this sooner. I wish I would have got them on services sooner. And so I say with this too, it's the same thing. The more you can heal and grow, I always think like that's what God is calling us to, is to, on earth while we are here, is to just keep kind of refining ourselves.
Yeah. And again, coming back to that idea that he is here to rescue us, to bring us out of bondage. And grief unhealed is a bondage, right? Because it doesn't allow us to be free and who we are meant to be. And it doesn't allow us to be outside of ourselves as much because we're stuck in that bondage. So we always come back to the question at the end, and you can expound a little bit on it. And I also have a question within my question, which kind of came out when I asked you the first time, but how do we get over our grief was the question. But I'm wondering, do we get over our grief, or is it a different question we need to ask? Like, how do we move through our grief? Do we really get over? Can we get over our grief? Can we be completely healed?
I think that we can be healed in the sense that we still miss the person. We still have sad days, but it kind of is paired more with, we have peace and hope with it, instead of just like the sadness and there's their favorite song, or gosh, they're never going to see my kids. I mean, you still have some of that, but it doesn't feel as heavy and as intense. So it's kind of like if you were to get hurt and you have a scar, you're always going to have that scar, but it's a scar now instead of like a gaping wound. And so that is what I think of when I think of grief. It's just always a part of you now, but it doesn't have to feel like a constant emergency or something you constantly have to kind of power your way through.
You know, I was talking to one of my children recently who's going through kind of a grieving process. And, I'm trying to move through that with this child. And and I don't know if it was well appreciated, but the idea of going through some of these things, like when the joy does come, it's going to be a more robust joy. Because if we just went through life and everything was like even and kind of like superficially happy, when I think going into the valley makes like the mountaintop experience so much better. And I think that's kind of what you're saying too. Like it can be a part of us, but actually those hard times can be a point of joy if we let them and if we move through it healthily. So, one more thing before I let you go, what about your faith sort of is special in this? Because anyone can, I suppose, go get their certification to be a grief coach. But what do you think your belief in Jesus adds to you being able to offer something to others?
I think that it always keeps me rooted in the truth. And because, like I said, our feelings can really pull us every which direction. And feelings are good. God gave us them for a reason. But you want those feelings to have a North Star to be able to know, okay, am I getting off path? Am I going and I really just think like having Jesus at the center, like gives us that North Star that then we can aim for.
I love it. The North Star idea just popped into my head a couple days ago. So I think that must be it. The North Star. I mean, we need our North Star to keep us, all of us need the guardrails to get through life and handle all of the different adversities and the joys that come our way too. So Nichole, this was really good. I'm hopeful. I hope that some people will check you out because not everyone has that friend that's going to be, just a listening ear. And sometimes we just need someone else to help us process things. So thank you for offering that today. And I hope you have a blessed Christmas season, which hasn't happened quite yet, but it's happening right now. So go enjoy your children. And thank you for all that you do to give to others. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
How do we get over grief? Early on in this conversation, it occurred to me that the question isn't really about getting over grief, but moving through it as well as possible. And of course, there's no perfect way. We are all unique, therefore our grieving will be unique as well. One of the most powerful phrases in the Bible deals with grief. It's not only powerful, but it's also one of the shortest phrases. Jesus wept, from John 11:35. I remember when this first became a healing balm to me. It was 2000, and a friend, one of my soul sisters, died from the ravaging effects of cancer. I was in my early 30s, and it was a pivotal time for me to really begin to try to grasp death. Having a fellow mother in my life go through this, a mother whose youngest of 4 children was only in 2nd grade, hit hard. But in my grief, I came across these words of John's describing Jesus' grief. He understood. He went through it too. He knows what it's like to lose a friend or any loved one. He is God, and yet he experiences grief with us. He is not separate from our grief. While that was a profound consolation in the wake of profound loss, it didn't mean I wouldn't still grieve, both for this friend and in future losses, but it did give me an anchor to return to. I really like what Nichole said about how we tend to be hard on ourselves when it comes to these harder emotions, thinking that it's a one and done kind of deal. We have our cry and then that should be it, right? That's not the way grief works. It's complicated, just like our human relationships are. Enter Nichole Haugen. While not everyone will need or seek out a grief coach, I love that she's acted on her heart's desire to be with people in their difficult moments. It's the nurse in her, as she said, but it's also the Christ in her, who is wont to relieve human suffering. And I think it's beautiful that she's dedicating her career to helping others move through their grief in this compassionate, thoughtful, prayerful way. I hope that if you're going through grief in this season, or if you know someone else who is, you'll look up Nichole's grief coaching services and get in touch. Like she said, others have commented, I wish I had done this sooner. She's got something good going, and I'm glad to have highlighted her today and in this season when grief seems to be especially pervasive and ready to take us down. Jesus wants more for us. He wants healing and to set us free from the shackles of unhealed grief. In a couple of weeks, we'll be back to ask a Jewish rabbi and chaplain at Princeton University, have our youth checked out of religion? Until then, don't lose sight of the light.